we can actually look at the workload associated with bringing that case from one phase to another and bringing that case to conclusion. And of course, data is power. So the more data you have and that you can bring to bear on these decisions, the better you're able to assess your team, the better you're able to coach your team and build systems around that team.
Welcome to Personal Injury Mastermind. I'm your host, Chris Dreyer, founder and CEO of Rankings.io, the legal marketing company the best firms hire when they want the rankings traffic in cases other law firm marketing agencies can't deliver. On this show, I've been fortunate enough to learn from some of the best minds in the personal injury space. And now we're bringing them together in one place at the first ever PIM conference. PIMCon is coming to Scottsdale this September. We're laser focused on one thing, getting more leads. And I'm not talking about just any leads, but quality leads that actually turn into cases. That's it. That's our entire focus. It's not just theory. We're talking about actionable strategies that have been tried and tested by the best in the business. If you're looking to conquer personal injury marketing and go from good to GOAT, PIMCon is where you need to be. We've gathered the top PI marketing experts to share their secrets, and believe me, this is cutting-edge stuff you won't find anywhere else. Don't miss out on another potential client. Grab your ticket to PIMCon now and get ready to supercharge your practice. Your future self will thank you. Go to PIMCon.org. All right, let's dive in. Drowning in deadlines, buried in emails, broken communication, juggling countless files. Sound familiar? Ryan Anderson knows this pain. As a former attorney, he felt the pressure of managing a chaotic caseload firsthand. He knew there must be a better way. That's what led him to co-found FileVine, an AI-powered legal platform that is revolutionizing the law firm operations. With FileVine serving over 3,500 law firms and processing a staggering 200 plus cases per hour, Ryan's vision has clearly struck a chord in the legal community. In this episode, we unpack how AI is transforming the legal practice. From automating demand letters to streamlining legal research, we'll explore how these tools can boost your firm's efficiency, accuracy, and ultimately, profitability. Here's Ryan Anderson, co-founder at FileVine.
I'm not a naturally organized individual, but I am naturally anxious. And I don't want to make mistakes. I would often give assignments to people in my capacity as a lawyer. And when I would give an assignment, maybe I was doing it verbally, maybe I was doing it via email, I would wind up asking the person who I gave the assignment to. So maybe it's a paralegal, maybe it's an associate attorney, who knows? But I've given out some assignment that has some completion date. A good example might be prepare expert disclosures. And I would say, hey, so-and-so, please prepare the expert disclosures on the Smith case. They would say, great. And I would come back 3 weeks later and say, hey, we've got 2 days left. Where are the expert disclosures on the Smith case? And this person would give me some blank stare like, what are you talking about? We've never had that conversation. And unfortunately, I am not organized enough to even remember if they might have been right. It's possible they were right. Who really knows? The problem I was trying to solve was, it's not just knowing what I have to do or even knowing what others have to do. It's knowing what has to be done and hasn't yet been done. It's really easy to say positively you have to do a thing and you have to do it by a certain period of time. It's way more difficult to have a system that proves the negative. This needed to be done and you haven't done it yet. And I didn't know of any system that did that. I looked at other products that purported to be case management systems. They were case management systems. Some of them, really good and had been around for some time, but none of them did that. And that was the problem I was trying to solve. So I was fortunate to connect with my co-founder, Jim Blake. And that was the very first product we built. And to this day, the feed and what I would call the task list is, in my view, the strongest feature of FileVine.
Yeah, no conversation starts well with per my email on this day.
Right, exactly.
That's great that you found that you needed the clarity, and those status update meetings, they're costly, right? It's like, hey, what's the update, as opposed to just logging in and seeing the activity, like you said. Yeah, but we kind of jumped ahead, like big picture. I got a bunch of granular questions, Ryan, but big picture, 80/20. What is FileVine? What's like the core features of FileVine that really make it stand out?
There are three main things a law firm does. They manage their cases, they bill for those cases, or they receive funds via a contingency arrangement. So kind of time and billing work, and then document management. Those three are like core features that have to exist. But here's the problem. Not a single case management system does any two of those well. Like you really can't find a great case management system that also does document management well. You can't find a document management system. I don't think you can find one that does any case management or any to speak of. And the same can be said for time and billing systems. Those systems tend to exist in silos. They tend to be good at one thing, not good at the others, or they don't do it at all. So the vision of FileVine has been to be world class in all three of those categories. And so world class in case management, world class in time and billing, world class in document management. Are we there yet? No, we're not. But I do think we are well ahead of our competition. And that has been the driving vision of the business for a while.
So many attorneys have the same problem, quickly finding specific documents in their CA case files. It's an issue that comes up repeatedly in my conversations with law firms. FileVine has a fresh approach to document management. They use optical character recognition, or OCR, which is, for those who may not be familiar, OCR technology converts various document types, scanned papers, PDF, images, into searchable, editable text. Potential impact for law firms is huge. Imagine being able to search through every document in your case files, not just by file names, but by the actual content within these documents. Ryan walks us through FileVine's document management capabilities.
Here's where we are today as a product and a company. And you're right, like as a lawyer, I would have this problem. A classic example might be, look, I know that 3 years ago, we drafted a motion to exclude this kind of evidence in a totally different case, and it was successful against Judge Anderson. Now I can't remember the case, but I know it was successful, and the same issue's happening again, and I need to see that same document. Every law firm has got this corpus of work that they've done that is highly relevant to work they're going to do. The last thing you want to do as a lawyer is have to redo that work. The last thing your client wants to pay for is for you to redo that work. So FileVine OCRs and indexes every single document that comes into the system automatically. Now, you have to be a Docs Plus customer to get that, but if you are, every single document you upload to FileVine will automatically be OCR'd and indexed for quick searching within the document itself. We can very easily say, if you remember a phrase from that motion that you wrote 3 years ago, if you can type that in and we have exact Boolean search, you can find that exact document, pull it up, give it to your associate and say, here's exactly how we should write this motion because I did it right here. Here's the case law. Here's the facts. Here's how we overcame some arguments from the other side. Go ahead and prepare this motion. So, that's an enormous time saver. And what I love is it allows a law firm to kind of build on its own success. So when a law firm's done something that's worked, they can then say, hey, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's a huge benefit, not only to the lawyers at the firm, but to the clients. And frankly, I think it allows your work product to get better over time and helps you in the kind of the legal community. So that's kind of one example of where I think we gotten to do a pretty good job about surfacing that information for attorneys.
Yeah, and let me ask about that. So the optical character recognition, the OCRs, how granular does that get? Like, what are the capabilities? This is a new kind of feature compared to, I've had other conversations with other case management tools, but I haven't heard of the OCR capabilities like you're speaking of.
There's a couple different things going on here. So I think our OCR is quite high quality. Now, if you say to yourself, okay, like if it's a handwritten document by a doctor and that doctor has terrible handwriting, can the OCR sort of decipher all that handwriting? Maybe. You'd be surprised at how good it can be, but maybe not. So I don't want to overstate the case here. There's certainly documents that if they're really poor quality for one reason or another, we're going to be less successful in pulling out those documents. But generally, if the document is one where the characters can be read by our tools, then you're going to have a really good searchable document. It's awesome. I mean, I can tell you it's fast. It's happening in the background. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to say, hey, do OCR on this document or not on that document. It's unlimited as well. So you can, there's no limit to how many files you can put up on FileVine. We don't limit our storage at all. It's one kind of really amazing thing about how the system's been architected is there's no limitations to document storage, storage at all, period. And so you can throw as many documents at FileVine as you want. And if you're a Docs Plus customer, we're going to OCR all those documents and make them immediately searchable.
Yeah, and I'd imagine there's nothing worse when I get on a Zoom call and I look in the background of an attorney's office is all these file cabinets and files sitting all over the place. I'm just kind of like, oh boy, like just the cost, the lack of being able to find the organization. I kind of want to talk about just a general like an outcome. Personal injury firms, they're juggling with complex long running cases, right? You mentioned like, hey, this one from 3 years ago we could use. Speaking specifically to FileVine, like what are the features that can help reduce time on desk right? So a lot of people talk about increasing case value, getting more leads, but like speaking specific to the velocity component because of how important that is from a cash flow perspective.
Time on desk is interesting. It's an interesting metric to look at, but I'm not sure how highly correlated maybe it is, but I'm not sure that it's highly correlated to financial success. Um, it may well be that a case sitting on an attorney's desk benefits dramatically by being on that desk longer if it's being worked in a way that is going to add tremendous value to the case. One of the things that look, having practiced personal injury law, really grown to love the practice, and boy, the amount of respect I have for the lawyers who dedicated their lives to it, it's just off the charts. I just think it's an incredible profession, and on both sides, by the way, not just personal injury lawyers, but also defense attorneys who come in and fight for the rights of claimants who are being accused of being negligent. I think on both sides, it's really just an amazing profession and speaks to sort of an underlying fairness in this country that I think we should all be really proud of. But anyway, I would much rather have a tool that gives an attorney an edge in finding something that drives the value of a case up, or if you're on the defense side, drives the value of the case down, than focus on how long a file's been sitting on the desk.
I love the answer. I love the answer. Assuming you're maximizing the value, right?
Okay.
And not extending it out.
Fair enough.
If you've done all that you can do and you get the cash quicker, then you can pump it into your marketing funnels and lead acquisition channels.
Yeah. There's totally good reason to care about time on desk. So first of all, FileVine has a really highly configurable phase-based system. So you can track cases by phase in a way that I think is, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but what I've seen from other software systems, not as customizable as FileVine on that front. And so a firm can get really granular, really specific on how they want to track the various phases of a case. And they can report on those, and they can do it in a dashboard, and they can do it kind of however they want. I'd be really surprised. I don't know of a system that can kind of go as deep on the efficiency of individual case managers, paralegals, attorneys, junior associates as FileVine can, because we can say, okay, how long has this case sat in treatment? How long is this case sat in demand prep? How long is this case sent in demand out stage? How long is this case sat in the negotiation phase? And we can break that down all the way to the person handling the case, whether it's an attorney, a paralegal, a case manager, a senior attorney, whoever. We can even go further than that. FileVine measures every single action you take in the system. And by action, I don't necessarily mean keystroke. In fact, it's almost never a keystroke that we're talking about. FileVine can say, okay, like how many tasks did it take this person to get this case to this point? How many documents did they have to look at? How many documents did they download? How many documents did they generate? How many medical requests did they generate? We can actually look at the workload associated with bringing that case from one phase to another and bringing that case to conclusion. And of course, data is power. So the more data you have and that you can bring to bear on these decisions, the better you're able to assess your team, the better you're able to coach your team and build systems around that team. So that's one way that I think FileVine can help quite a bit of time on desk. Obviously, like you can measure these things really well in FileVine.
So I saw that on the analytics component, the phases, and I'd imagine that you probably get benchmarks for different phases to identify those constraints. And I would imagine that getting those individuals the support they need, the training or even top grading, to get better talent. I mean, look, we're the owners, so you give them as much resource you can to improve. So that's amazing that all that data is stored there. And one of the big ones is demands, right? It's getting those demands out, and I've heard some horror stories about when they're sent out. So you've got some new AI powered features, and let's talk about the demands AI.
I certainly think you could. If you had all of the records and bills in front of you, you have filled out all of the necessary fields in FileVine, you could absolutely produce a demand in 15 minutes. A complex demand could definitely take longer, but Demands AI is a phenomenal product. It is one of our fastest growing products. In fact, it might be our fastest growing product now. That and Project AI, which is a kind of a Demands AI is a subset of Project AI. So a couple things about it. There are a lot of demand services out there. A lot of them have gotten a lot of press. Some of them have gotten funding. These are basically third-party service providers where you say, hey, I'm going to upload all my medical records. I'm going to upload information about the case. I'm going to fill out a form. And somebody somewhere is going to work with AI, apparently. We don't actually know what they're doing, but is apparently going to work with AI and produce a demand in some number of days and return it back to you. That's a nice service. And if somebody wants to use that service, FileVine can accommodate that. But what I find far more compelling is, we're a software company. And so we build software. And so we think every time we kind of think through building a feature, our job is how can we empower the users at a firm to do this better? And so our demands tools, our AI tools, you don't have to ship anything off. You don't have to ask for some third-party drafter to do an AI-assisted build of this demand. You can draft the entire demand yourself with our AI tools. You can see the AI tools working. You can actually see them produce AI results and output right in FileVine in our AI fields tool. And then when you go to the drafting portion of the demand workup in our FileVine document assembly tool, you can see how FileVine uses kind of multiple AI processes to take the extraction data and summarization data that has come from our AI fields product and then have that spun up through a separate AI process in FileVine document assembly to produce really fast, beautiful demands that anybody can build. So whether it's a paralegal, a case manager, a relatively non-technical person can get in and utilize AI on their own without having to ship the demand off anywhere and produce a very high quality demand very quickly. I will tell you, this product has taken off like a rocket. It is really fun to see kind of what this does for law firms who, maybe have been using a service, maybe they've been trying to do all their demands in-house, but they are seeing significant efficiencies. And again, the cool thing here is you don't have to wonder how it's working. You're going to see all the outputs right inside of FileVine and right inside of FileVine document assembly. A couple cool things about that. Not only does it produce this demand that, of course, you can then send off to an insurance company, the benefit of having this done in platform instead of somewhere else is that all those AI outputs now reside permanently in your system for later reference, because at some point you actually want that data sitting back in your system of record. FileVine has that. So, the extraction of CPT codes, for instance, or the summarization of a deposition or a recorded statement, medical chronology, AI output, any of these type outputs are really nice to be able to reference outside of the context of a demand. It's nice to have those sitting within your case management platform. And that all happens automatically just as part of the demands process if you are a demands AI customer. It's really cool.
Let's zoom out for a moment and consider the big picture. What we're talking about here is the impact of a firm's bottom line. FileVine's tools seem to address pain points, identifying bottlenecks, accelerating demand creation, and improving information recall. These are all factors that directly influence profitability. Now, I know there's been some apprehension in the legal community about AI, but from what I've seen, as attorneys become more familiar with these technologies, much of the initial hesitation is fading away. I'd like to shift gears slightly and discuss FileVine's AI blocks feature. I'm particularly interested in how it might revolutionize legal research. Ryan explains how FileVine's AI blocks use prompts to assist with legal research and the practical applications of this technology in day-to-day work.
If you're a demands AI customer, you pick up basically all the AI we have to offer. We take kind of the extraction, kind of the workhorse of the system in the AI fields product. And then once it gets over to our document assembly tool, we have AI blocks. And those blocks basically say, okay, here we're going to insert kind of more customized prompts that will take the information sitting inside of FileVine and all the different fields and categories and start building narratives around them and start building a demand around them. So that's what AI blocks does. It does just quite a bit more than that. It's probably worth like a full demonstration or full kind of product breakdown. But blocks kind of consider it the second pass or the second AI review around our demands AI feature. AI blocks and AI fields allow FileVine to kind of use a variety of different AI approaches. So at FileVine, we're using predictive AI with our own models we built ourselves that kind of predicts case outcomes. We use some foundational models from some of the big players. And then we use models and embedding strategies with players that, with outside services you may not have heard of that are more nuanced and specific to this industry. Meanwhile, all the time working on our own internal model that is going to take advantage of kind of all the data that sits inside of FileVine to give really specific, accurate, correct answers. A couple things to your point with respect to safety and security. In every case, if we are using artificial intelligence we are not sending out the data in a way that can be read by any third-party service. Those services do not retain the data in any way. And importantly, and this is the most important part, they do not train on the data. And so you can rest assured that if you're using our AI tools, your data is going to remain safe and certainly not going to be kind of slurped up into some machine learning tool outside the confines of FileVine. So that should be really reassuring to anybody who's thinking about using AI.
I love that, especially for the larger PI firms where they have the data which is a tremendous advantage for them.
Totally.
I want to circle back just because we briefly talked about it, and I think you said it at the very beginning. It's one of the biggest advantages of just the communication capabilities and just the overall, of case management. You said, hey, the feed is one of our biggest advantages, but let's just talk about, there's so many different roles, right? There's the lawyers, the paralegals, the clerks, a ton of individuals, right? Let's just talk about how FileVine addresses the collaboration and kind of helps with the communication breakdowns. I know we've touched on some of it, but maybe just give you the platform just for a moment to speak on that.
Look, we're really proud of the fact that FileVine does a better job of what we'd call internal and external communication, certainly internal communications. I think we do a better job of that than anybody, and by a pretty significant margin. On external communication, we're doing some work there, but I think we have long had the best embedded texting SMS feature on the market. But every single communication that happens on a case, and it can happen in a variety of ways, lawyers all know this. A communication can come in via email, it can come in via text, it can come in via a phone call, it can come in via an in-person visit. There's just an enormous amount of inputs and modes with which those inputs come into a case and need to be memorialized and cataloged such that attorneys and paralegals can make sense of them and develop a case strategy. If a law firm decides, and really this has to kind of happen from the top, hey, we are going to utilize FileVine as our source of truth for everything that's going on a case. That means all notes, that means all documents, that means all tasks and internal communications. What you will have created is a system where basically you can drop in anybody, a case manager, a paralegal, a new attorney who says, hey, I want to get up to speed on this case. They can run an AI summary that's going to be really good because that AI summary is going to be able to take advantage of all the data sitting in the case. But also they can just read through the case in a chronological way that takes into account all the different inputs from all the different sources. With respect to kind of internal communications, I found as a lawyer, and I have to think other lawyers see this problem, they make a decision on a case. We're going to give one example, but there could be, in this particular case, for whatever reason, we're not going to bring a wage loss claim. Who knows? They decide to drop the wage loss claim. Okay. A year later, your client says to you, why aren't you bringing a wage loss claim? You might have had that conversation with the client. I sure hope if you did, you had the client sign something saying, hey, I agree not to bring a wage loss claim, and here it is in the file. Beyond that, do you also have the threaded history of why you decided not to bring that claim? There may be any number of reasons why that maybe didn't make sense at the time. But boy, it would be really helpful if you can say, actually, Bob, the reason we're not bringing this claim is because you mentioned these things to us, and we actually thought in your case, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. It might open up avenues for discovery that don't really make sense in your case, and ultimately, you weren't going to get a lot out of this claim anyway. And we had that conversation, we went through that, and I can see, in June of 2018, that's exactly the conversation that you and I had, and my internal team talked about it, and we feel really comfortable with the decision we've made. That is such an important conversation to be able to have with your client, especially when they're questioning you later on. Even worse, if there's a bar issue or something later on, or heaven forbid about a malpractice claim. So nice to be able to have that internal communication as to why something happened. But it may not even be that the client's upset. You might just want to know, why did we do this? A partner might come onto a file and say, who in the hell made a decision not to pursue a wage loss claim? That was a huge mistake. Why would you do this? And now all of a sudden, some poor associate has to defend themselves, and they may not even remember. And so all of those kinds of problems in a law firm that really do slow law firms down and bring a bunch of acrimony into the firm, and I think create a kind of an environment of distrust and hurt cultures, all of that can be avoided if people just say, hey, you know what? We're going to have one internal communication system. It's not email. It's the case. It's the case that sits in FileVine.
I love that. The historical record, the alignment, everything it comes that comes with it. I'd imagine too, it has a real impact on the case manager's ability to do their job and to keep the client informed, to give them this unique experience, because they don't have to go check and interrupt someone's workflow. That it's right in the case management. and it creates a good process for creating evangelism through that as well.
You're totally right, Chris. In fact, I would say that most clients get mad most of the time because an attorney's not returning a phone call. I would say that's usually, if a client's upset, it's because of that. Not always, of course, there's many reasons the client might be upset, but usually they don't think their lawyer's returning their phone call fast enough. In my experience, the lawyer isn't not returning the phone call because the lawyer is lazy, or she doesn't want to return the phone call, or she hates the client. I don't think, I'm not saying that's never the case, but it's usually not the case. What has usually happened is this poor lawyer doesn't have an answer. She doesn't actually know the answer to the question that the client is calling about. And that's a real challenge. And maybe she's waiting on her paralegal to get back from vacation. Maybe she's waiting on the associate that handled that hearing to come tell her what's going on. Maybe she's waiting on any number of things to be able to get an answer to the client. All of that gets alleviated. If everything's in the case and everything's sitting in that FileVine communication record, that lawyer can confidently get on the phone with their client and say, hey, here's what's happening. Here's why. Here's what I think the next step should be.
So for those attorneys rocking the spreadsheet or the notes on the desk or or needles or something of that nature.
I get it. I get it. Right. I mean, I know what it's like to use a Google Sheet to run cases. It's a good idea. It doesn't work over the long run. It's going to get way too complex.
Ryan, this has been amazing. One final question. What's the best ways for listeners to learn more or to get in touch?
We'd be thrilled to talk to any one of you. FileVine.com will have multiple ways. I'm quite certain if you give your email to us on FileVine.com, we will find multiple ways of reaching out to you.
Thanks so much to Ryan for coming on the show. Let's hit the takeaways. Go beyond basic revenue tracking. Let's talk about implementing a profit per case tracking system. This gives you a granular view of which types of cases truly drive your profitability. By understanding the profit margin for each case category, you can refine your marketing strategy and adjust. It's about optimizing your efforts for maximum financial impact.
I don't know of a system that can kind of go as deep on the efficiency of individual case managers, paralegals, attorneys, junior associates as FileVine can say, okay, like how many tasks did it take this person to get this case to this point?
Data-driven performance management. This isn't just about collecting numbers, it's about leveraging them to propel your firm forward. Consider metrics like time to resolution, case value progression, and client satisfaction scores. Create individual performance dashboards for your members. This approach fosters improvements and gives you concrete insights for strategic decision-making.
We can say, okay, how long has this case sat in treatment? How long is this case sat in demand prep? How long is this case sent in demand out stage? How long is this case sat in the negotiation phase? And we can break that down all the way to the person handling the case, whether it's an attorney, a paralegal, a case manager, a senior attorney, whoever. We can even go further than that. FileVine measures every single action you take in the system.
Put your Skynet fears on the side. AI is here to stay. Use AI to handle routine tasks, freeing up your attorneys for high-value work that directly impacts case outcomes. Pair this with a centralized communication system to eliminate information gaps and reduce errors. This combination not only accelerates processes, but also enhances the quality of your service, and that's a win for everyone.
If a law firm decides we are going to utilize FileVine as our source of truth for everything that's going on a case, that means all notes, that means all documents, that means all tasks and internal communications, what you will have created is a system where basically you can drop in anybody, a case manager, a paralegal, a new attorney, who says, hey, I want to get up to speed on this case. They can run an AI summary that's going to be really good because that AI summary is going to be able to take advantage of all the data sitting in the case, but also they can just read through the case in a chronological way that takes into account all the different inputs from all the different sources. You could absolutely produce a demand in 15 minutes.
For more information about Ryan, check out the show notes. Before you go, do me a solid and smash that follow button to subscribe. Don't miss out on another episode with Personal Injury Mastermind with me, Chris Dreyer, founder and CEO of Rankings.io. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. See you next time. I'm out.